I'm here in this hidden pearl in Warsaw. This is the Jewish cemetery on ulica Okopowa. This cemetery opened in 1806, and since then it has served the Jewish community in Warsaw. But it's more than that. It's a valuable historical resource. When so much else was destroyed, during the Second World War particularly, this place survived remarkably. We'll be meeting some of the people who are restoring it, who are keeping it going. So do join me on this exciting episode of Poland Daily History. I'm here in the Jewish cemetery on Okopowa Street with Udi Myron. Udi is visiting Poland from his family, his home in Tel Aviv. Udi, thank you for joining us. Can you say a little bit about your family's history in Poland?
Well, it's quite complicated, to be honest. My mother actually was born in Geneva, but for Polish parents from Polish background. My grandfather was not Jewish. His name was Roman Ulatowski. My grandmother was Jewish, Hannah Rubinstein. And they left Poland, but in 1936 they returned. My grandmother was a dentist and she couldn't work. She got her degree here in Warsaw and she couldn't work in France, so they returned to Warsaw in 1936. And they both died during the war. My grandmother was caught by the Gestapo and died in Pawiak. And my grandfather was part of the uprising and died in Mauthausen. So that's as much as I knew more or less about my great-parents. My mother survived and her sister survived, and they both made it to Israel.
All right, good.
That's where actually my mother met my father, who was also lived in what was then Poland, in Rovno. And they met on their way in France, and they made it on a boat. He was a British, British mandate. They were caught and taken to Cyprus, and the rest then came to Israel, and that's then I was born and my sister, and that's the story of the family. But I knew very little about what happened before, and for a long time in Israel, really, we were like the new Israelis. We didn't want to know about it, but when I turned 50, all of a sudden, I got much interest in it.
To learn more about your family.
Exactly, and I also wrote a book about it. And then I started the research, and then I learned about Abraham, my great-grandfather, and Razel.
This is the grave.
And that's his grave, which I found today.
That's right.
Which you tried to help me. And,
exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
When we met earlier.
And it was quite exciting, to see it. I have one picture of him, and to come to his grave is somehow to connect yourself to the history. Exactly. And it's,
I mean, it's funny, isn't it? A funny sort of way that although history, as we've said before, is a very living thing, and here we're in a grave, a cemetery which is full of, obviously, a member of the dead people, yet in the sense it's connected you.
Yeah, I think it's...
With your family in Tel Aviv here, with your family in Poland, your family history. That's quite exciting, I think.
Yeah, I know, 70-some years ago, there were 500,000 Jews living here, and
exactly.
Now... Or what were left is with the graveyard.
Yeah, well, we're getting more. I mean, there are a few tens of thousands back again. But yes,
quite a few Israelis.
Can you, looking at the grave, can you tell us something about the design of the gravestone?
It's written in Hebrew, which is quite interesting. That I even didn't know they knew how to speak Hebrew. They were speaking. Polish, of course, Yiddish, some of them, he came from a Russian area, so I know that they spoke Russian as well. But this is written only in Hebrew. It's talking about the fact that he loved to study, which by Jewish tradition, it's probably the most important.
Exactly,
yes. The bar mitzvah a boy have to do when he's 13 is to prove the community that he knows how to read, which was a big thing in the past. So it says that he loved to study, and he donated to the poor, and that's what they say about him. Reb Abraham, his father, Tzvi Ze'ev Wolf Rubinstein, and the fact that he's originally from Sovalk, which until recently I didn't know. I thought he was Warsaw, but he came to Warsaw in 1900. His wife, Razel, her family was originally from Warsaw. They were born in 1875.
Okay.
And came in 1900. They came to Warsaw, and then underneath it says that. May this place be comfortable for him for, until eternity.
Well,
and the design is, quite decorative, Baroque in some. Well, and those are kind of, I think, Jewish symbols, more or less, kind of resemble the Torah book or something like that. This kind of shape. That it's surprising to see the shape it is, and the fact that it's here. It's really exciting.
Well, I did. And are any of your other relatives in this cemetery? Do you know?
Maybe from my great-grandmother's side. Actually, I didn't think about it. We couldn't find hers, even though she died before the war, sometime during the 30s. But I don't know. It's a good idea. Take one step at a time.
Exactly.
But it's quite quite moving. It's
very large cemetery, and it is. I think it's particularly moving because you mentioned earlier about it's saying that your great grandfather to rest in all eternity. And when you think of the history of Warsaw, and particularly the history of this part of Warsaw, and particularly, of course, in the Second War, the ravage and destruction around it, that your great grandfather's tomb has sort of remained undisturbed for all that time. I think it's probably a fitting end that he actually did. In fact, it appears, at least, he was one of the lucky ones to actually have his wish fulfilled, that he's resting here.
Yeah, actually, as we were walking around, we saw that there are still bullet signs from the uprising, that there were some fighting going on.
Oh, yes, there was.
But in general, I know that the Germans didn't like to go into cemeteries from their own reasons, and that was also a play of rescue and for many people who used to come here. But but it's really, compared to the city that was destroyed, and especially the ghetto that came to ravels, this looks really nice, and it's make you feel connected.
Exactly. It is, as you say, it does with the cemeteries generally. You do feel it is a living history. Here we are, the living, remembering, connected, particularly in your case with the dead.
It makes my life more complicated in terms of my relation to Warsaw in general, because here my family was here, but my family got killed here, and there's a lot of tragedy and issues concerned that.
And I'm sure for you and for many other families as well, it is a very mixed blessing in some ways. But at least
it is.
At least I think we found one member of your family who sort of went to his rest in peace and is still being left in peace. I think that's something to celebrate.
Certainly, yeah.
And thank you very much for sharing that memory with us.
Thank you for having you in the show.
Thank you. Shalom. Thank you.
Shalom, shalom.